الحمد لله وكفى وسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله واتقوا الله إن الله سميع عليم يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا ترفعوا أصواتكم فوق صوت النبي ولا تجهروا له بالقول كجهر بعضكم لبعض أن تحبط أعمالكم وأنتم لا تشعرون إن الذين يغضون أصواتهم عند رسول الله أولئك الذين امتحن الله قلوبهم للتقوى لهم مغفرة وأجر عظيم صدق الله العظيم. Respected elders, dear brothers and sisters, I've just recited the opening ayat of Surah Al-Hujurat. This is the first few verses of the 49th Surah of the Quran, Surah Al-Hujurat. In this surah, we find many ahkam, laws, rules and regulations, awamir and nawahi, commandments and prohibitions related to society and also related to akhlaq, character. Some are morally characterized, others are very ethical. What is clear about these ahkam is that as believers, they are a unique blueprint for how we may be able to have the best character and the best akhlaq. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala begins this surah, Surah Al-Hujurat. In the very first ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله. All those of you who believe, do not put yourself before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and before Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we've gone over some of the meanings of this ayah. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ, and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in doing something like this. A unique style in the Quran that you'll find throughout the Quran. That wherever you find ahkam, commandments and prohibitions, awamir and nawahi, wherever you find laws, rules and regulations, you'll find this phrase, wattaqullah, repeated multiple times. And the wisdom behind this is that we may understand that as believers, if someone does not fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then they will not abide by the ahkam or the laws and rules. And this is kind of a human trait in society. We even find in the system of law within our countries that any country that enforces their laws with authority and the people fear the authority, and they will abide by the laws of that country. And that fear can either be the fear of the government, or it can be the fear of money, losing money. Some countries, they're very authoritarian, where they impose their laws with authority and force. Everyone fears the government, so everyone is very careful in how they live their life. You find in very authoritarian governments this type of system. In the Western world, we may not fear that government as much because they're not authoritarian, but we do fear the loss of money. Everyone is afraid of getting a ticket, getting a citation, or having to appear in front of the court because there is money involved, and everyone loves money. This is one of the loves of human beings. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, as human beings, we also love wealth. So the fear of losing that wealth keeps us very, very straight, keeps us following the laws, rules, and regulations. When it comes to the Quran, the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the fear of the wrath of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you do not abide by these rules and regulations, that fear should keep us as careful as possible. And not only is it the implementation of the ahkam, but we should try to take the most careful route. When dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when dealing with the ahkam of deen, the laws, rules, and regulations of our deen, then we should try our best to seek out the most careful route. And that is something that we should try our best to implement. Being careful is what will help us and be very beneficial to us. So here also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala repeats the same style, wattaqullah, and fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Inna Allah sami'un alim. Definitely Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He hears and He knows everything. He knows if we put ourselves before His deen. He knows if we apply our own system, or we give preference to ourselves over giving preference to the ahkam of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to be very, very careful when dealing with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when dealing with the ahkam, laws, rules, and regulations of our deen. The second ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the second ayah of Surah Al-Hujurat, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, la tarfa'u aswatakum fawqa sawti an-nabi. All those of you who believe, do not raise your voice above and over the voice of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, above the voice of An-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. وَلَا تَجْهَرُوا لَهُ بِالْقَوْلِ كَجَهْرِ بَعْضِكُمْ لِبَعْضٍ أَنْ تَحْبَطَ أَعْمَالُكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ. We're also instructed very clearly that we should be very, very careful with our tone. Should be very, very careful with the kind of sounds that we make. In the sense that if Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is trying to instruct us something, and then we raise our voice above that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says doing something like this, or jumping before a certain situation comes and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam has not given an answer yet, or before he gives an answer we jump and give our own opinion, not waiting for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to answer. So in such a situation, أَن تَحْبَطَ أَعْمَالُكُمْ, doing such a thing may end up nullifying all of your righteous deeds. وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ, you won't even realize it. There are a few points that need to be discussed about this ayah, and a few ayat in the Quran very similar to this ayah. In the Quran, in a few places in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave very, very particular ahkam, very particular laws to the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum. And these rules, these laws, at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that was given to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, this was how they were to act in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They're also a very great lesson for us, but I'll come back to that. For the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, in the presence of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, they were told very clearly. It comes in different places in the Quran. You'll find various ayat that relate to interacting with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. In one place, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the Sahaba radiallahu anhum that Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu la taj'alu du'a ar-rasuli baynakum ka du'a'i ba'dikum ba'da. Those of you who believe, do not address Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam as you address one another. How do we address one another? Whenever we become comfortable with one another, whenever we become very informal, we address one another with each other's names. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, and this is also for all of us, that be careful addressing Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. When you're face to face with him, addressing him by his name just like that. And that is why you find the Sahaba radiallahu anhu, even when they quote the hadith, rarely you will find that they will use the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. They will not say Muhammad said. If you notice in the books of hadith, they don't say this. What do they say? قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, or سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. They say النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم said, or they say that I heard Rasulullah صلى الله عليه وسلم saying. I heard the Messenger of Allah صلى الله عليه وسلم saying. So this became so ingrained in their akhlaq. This became so ingrained in their character that they used to avoid addressing Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam by name. Why? Because what we understand in our society is that in society you have different levels as far as age is concerned. And the reason you have these levels is out of respect. The youngsters should not address the elders by their name, especially if it's a gap, elders, and I mean real elders. Either you should call them by uncle, or you should address them with a respectable name. Even in this society, the respect is generally given with the last name until we become really formal with someone. But Mr. So-and-so, generally the last name is used. But that's in this society. But this is that level of respect that should be given from the youngsters to the elders, is that they should avoid addressing the elders just by the name that, oh, so-and-so. As if this youngster is almost at the age level of the elder. This is not recommended whatsoever. This goes against character. Yes, in the Western world, there is a loss of character in many different fields, in many different levels. And this is one of the things that is lost in this character. But in general, out of respect, that character should be kept. So the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they were told to avoid addressing Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam like how they address one another. And you will find that the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, they took utmost care in doing this. But now, we do not have Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam with us. So that hukum, that command still applies to our elders, to the scholars in our society. And to just walk up to them and to address them, especially our senior and elder scholars. You have to be very, very careful how we address them. It's best to call them by titles, or Sheikh or Shiyukh, or some great title, Mufti or Maulana or Sheikh. Generally the term is Sheikh. Sheikh is an elder. So these are some of the titles that can be used for our senior ulama, senior scholars. And the reason this is written in the books of tafasir like this is because al-ulama warathatul anbiya. The scholars have inherited from prophets and they have inherited this prophethood, or the ilm of nubuwwah, the knowledge of prophethood. They have inherited that knowledge. So they're also entitled to a certain level of respect. Another thing is that this is also teaching us believers generally in our society that the children should not address their parents by their parents' names. It's very unfortunate in this society. You'll find little children calling the parents by their names. This should never happen. There should be a certain level of respect, a certain name used for the mother, a certain name used for the father. Different cultures have different ways. If nothing else, ummi and abi. So this is the Arabic names. Ummi is, oh, my beloved mother, or abi, my beloved father. Showing respect. Our religion has, in the basic foundation of our character, is based on respect. So this is very, very clear. In addressing our parents, addressing our elders, addressing our senior ulama and scholars, then we have to have respect. And this also applies to the elders in the society. There are some elders that have to be shown respect, not just address them as if they're normal. No, a certain level of respect must be given. This is very, very important. This is what our deen teaches us. Coming to the second ayah of Surah Al-Hujurat, out of respect, we should not raise our voice when they're talking. Remember this. Unfortunately, we live in a society where sometimes the elders are trying to say something and everyone else is not letting them speak. Whenever they speak, everyone should just listen. They have something important to say, listen. Even if they don't have something important to say. This command was given to the believers, to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, that in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, whenever Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is speaking, so do not jump his words. Don't speak over his voice. This is something very, very important. Now, he may not be with us, so at least we should have that respect for our elders, for our senior scholars, for our seniors in our society. The children must have that respect for their parents. If the parents are speaking, don't talk back. Don't argue back. Just listen. Even if they're wrong, let them finish. They do right to say what they need to say. When they're wrong, then after they're done speaking, then you may speak to them, but speak to them very, very kindly. Try and reason with them. Don't argue with them. We have no right to impose our ideas on the parents. There are elders. And this applies to the elders in the society also, that we should be very, very careful. When they have something to say, just listen. That's the best thing that we can do. So this now applies, that hukum now goes to the senior scholars and the ulama. When they're trying to instruct us something, we should listen. Also, another meaning of this is that whenever there's a discussion of deen and the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam is being quoted, then we should listen. There are two things that must be really fully understood when it comes to our deen. One is in relation to the Quran, the Kalamullah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran that whenever the Quran, وَإِذَا قُرِئَ الْقُرْآنُ فَاسْتَمِعُوا لَهُ وَأَنصِتُوا. Whenever the Quran is being recited, listen very attentively, وَأَنصِتُوا, and become silent. Don't talk when the Quran is being recited. In another ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a very, very stern warning in Surah Al-Ahqaf. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, what the kuffar and the disbelievers, what they do, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَا تَسْمَعُوا لِهَذَا الْقُرْآنِ وَالْغَوْا فِيهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَغْلِبُونَ. The disbelievers and the kuffar, they say when the Quran is being recited, don't listen to the Quran and speak over the Quran and have discussions and try to drown out the sound of the Quran that you may be victorious. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to their action by saying, فَلَنُذِيقَنَّ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا, that on the Day of Judgment they will definitely taste the evil of these sayings of what they have said. And they'll be made to taste. فَنُذِيقَنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا. They will definitely make the disbelievers taste a very, very painful punishment for doing this when the Quran is being recited and somebody starts speaking over the Quran and start talking when the Quran is going on. We have to listen attentively. The second is coming to the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And we should always say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam whenever we hear his title. So whenever the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam are being recited or being quoted, we should listen. We should not give our voice above the ahadith. Also, sometimes if we're told in a hadith that something is a certain way, we should try and implement. We should leave it to the scholars to get into the discussion of the authenticity of the ahadith. That is a discussion for the expert scholars. Even if we may have read somewhere that some hadith may not be authentic, but somebody's quoting that hadith, we should listen to them. Afterwards, we may be able to have a discussion with them that some of the scholars have their reservation about this hadith. Even then, leave that discussion to the scholars. When the hadith is being quoted, out of respect, we should listen. Someone asked there was a research done on the most respected scholars in history. There are some scholars that are famous in history for their amazing service and khidmah to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have the four Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Shafi'i rahmatullah alayhi, Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal rahimahullah. All of them I'm giving them in order of how they came in history. It's not that I'm giving any preference over one. Then you have the ulama of hadith, Muhammad bin Ismail al-Bukhari, very famous Sahih Bukhari, and all of the other Imam. And one of the things that they found was that in the research, why some of these scholars were given much more importance or became more famous, one of the few reasons, one, that they had very immense taqwa, very great fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, was demonstrated in their actions and in their akhlaq. Another thing was that they had immense respect for the ahadith. Immense respect. So whenever someone would quote a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, some of these scholars would just stand, they would freeze in their place. Some of them, even their face used to kind of become pale, just out of shock that there's a hadith being quoted. There's famously reported, famous incidents about some of these scholars, what kind of love they had for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. One famous incident about Imam Malik bin Anas rahimahullah, the famous Imam that the Maliki madhab they follow, that he was very, very famous for his ilm of hadith and his love for the ahadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. If he was walking on, just taking a stroll, and someone would come and ask him about a hadith, he used to tell the person that this is not the place to discuss the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He would consider it disrespectful to just, in the middle of anywhere, just have a discussion. He used to tell them, come to the masjid, come in a state of wudu, be clean, and then we will have a discussion about the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He used to have this much. Anytime he would go and teach the ahadith, so he used to make a fresh wudu, and he would come with a fresh wudu. He used to put on perfume. Someone asked him, why do you do this? He said, because these are the words of my beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Why should I not show respect to them? One time he was teaching class, and a scorpion went down his shirt. It happens in the desert. And some of these desert scorpions, their sting is very, very terrible, very, very painful. When the scorpion went down his shirt, Imam Malik rahimahullah, he was in the middle of quoting a hadith, and someone indicated to him there's a scorpion. And Imam Malik rahimahullah, he just looked at it, he continued quoting the hadith. He did not stop. He finished quoting the hadith. And he finished that hadith, whatever portion he had to explain. And after that, the students, they narrate that we could see that his face color started changing from pain. a scorpion had started stinging him. But he continued. And when he finished that hadith, then he got up and they removed the scorpion. He had been stung 16 times. 16 times. But he did not stop quoting the hadith. Someone asked him, why didn't you stop? He said, how could I stop the words of my beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam? I stopped that just for some creature of this world. How would that be respectful? So this is the kind of respect they used to have. And because of that respect, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them very great honor in this dunya, in this world. And I'm only quoting for you a few incidents from our salaf, some of the great scholars of the past. There's so many incidents about the kind of love and respect that they had for the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So we also should make it an utmost importance in our life that we should also have this level of respect and also try and understand the importance of the hadith and the words of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us understanding and give all of us the tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغِ. Inshallah, we will read one or two hadith and then inshallah we will continue with our tilawah for the day. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. Inshallah, I will read the hadith, then I will give the translation. So it's a little bit lengthy hadith. We'll read the hadith, and then inshallah I will give you the translation, inshallah. نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد. عن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إن العبد إذا وضع في قبره فتولى عنه أصحابه فإنه لا يسمع قرع نعالهم آتاه ملكان فيقعدانه فيقولان ما كنت تقول في هذه الرجل لمحمد صلى الله عليه وسلم فأما المؤمن فيقول أشهد أنه عبد الله ورسوله فيقول له انظر إلى مقعدك من النار قد أبدلك الله به مقعدا من الجنة فيراهما جميعا. فأما المنافق والكافر فيقول له ما كنت تقول في هذا الرجل فيقول لا أدري كنت أقول ما يقوله الناس فيقال لا دريت ولا تليت ويضرب بمطارق من حديد ضربة فيصيح صيحة يسمعها من يليه غير الثقلين وكما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام رواه البخاري. This hadith is in Sahih Bukhari. Sayyidina Anas ibn Malik radiyallahu anhu, he narrates that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, and we should say sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, verily the slave of Allah, when he is placed in his grave and his companions departs, فَإِنَّهُ لَا يَسْمَعُ قَرْعَ نِعَالِهِمْ, and he can hear the sounds of their sandals, meaning walking away. أَتَاهُ مَلَكَانِ, two angels come to him and they make him sit up. And among the questions that these angels ask him is also, what do you say about this man? What is your opinion about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam? If it is a mu'min, a believer, so he will say, I bear witness that he is the slave of Allah and his messenger. It will be then said to this believer, the malaika will say to him, that look, this is your dwelling in the hellfire. This is where your place was made. And the hellfire, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has replaced it with a dwelling in Jannah for you, in paradise for you. He will then see both dwellings. He'll see that there was a place in Jahannam, but now that the place in Jannah has been fixed for this believer. So he will enjoy the sights and the fragrance of Jannah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all of us with that and give all of us the tawfiq to answer such. As for the munafiq or for the kafir, it will be said to them, what did you use to say concerning this man? Meaning concerning Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the munafiq, the hypocrite or the disbeliever, he will reply, I don't know. I used to say what the people were saying. It will be then said to him, you didn't know. Meaning you did not follow those who knew. You were not ready to listen to them. And then he'll be beaten by hammers of iron, causing him to scream. And that sound which will be heard, that sound is such a sound that it is heard by everyone other than men and jinn, other than the thaqalayn, other than man and jinn. Every other creature can hear that screaming sound of those who are punished in their graves. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save and protect us from the punishment of the grave. This hadith is in Sahih Bukhari. And this is narrating to or mentioning the marahil and the stages of the qabr of the grave. So there are amongst the stages will be that there will be questions asked by the angels. You'll be asked, Ma Rabbuk, who's your Rabb? You'll be asked, Ma Dinuk, what is your deen, your way of life? And you'll also be asked about Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So this is in relation to that question. Tonight we'll be reciting Surah Al-Maryam, or Surah Maryam, and Surah Taha. And in Surah Maryam, and also in Surah Taha, you also find a discussion related to the people of Jannah and related to the people of Jahannam. There is various ayat in various different discussions. Coming towards the ending of Surah Taha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us one very unique portion, few verses. Very, very important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, وَمَنْ أَعْرَضَ عَنْ ذِكْرِي فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ. Whosoever turns away from my dhikr, whosoever turns away from my remembrance, meaning they allow themselves to be distracted and deviated from the world, from the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They allow themselves to be deceived by the dunya. فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, for such people, they'll have a very restricted life. Very, very tight life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will restrict their life. فَإِنَّ لَهُ مَعِيشَةً ضَنْكَ وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. And on the day of judgment, they'll be resurrected blind. There's another hadith in which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told us about this restricted life. مَنْ كَانَتِ الدُّنْيَا هَمَّهُ. Whosoever makes this world their only concern, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will scatter their affairs. Meaning their work will never end. They'll finish one project, there'll be 10 more problems waiting for them. They'll try to solve one problem, they'll turn into so many more. Then not only this, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam also told us that those people who will make this world their concern, they will not be able to get more from the world than what is written for them. And they'll also be humiliated in their earning of sustenance. So this is what is ma'ishatan danka, very, very restricted life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then further says in Surah Taha, وَنَحْشُرُهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ أَعْمَى. Will resurrect this person blind on the day of judgment. So the person will ask, قَالَ رَبِّ لِمَا حَشَرْتَنِي أَعْمَى. Oh my Rabb, why have I been resurrected blind? وَقَدْ كُنْتُ بَصِيرًا. When I could see before. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will respond to him, قَالَ كَذَلِكَ أَتَتْكَ آيَاتُنَا فَنَسِيتَهَا وَكَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. This is because we gave you our ayat. The Mufassirin have mentioned that either the ayat of the Quran, or it can be the ayat mentioned within the universe, but the ayat of the Quran, فَنَسِيتَهَا, you forgot them. وَكَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. Today you will also be forgotten. So it's very, very important that any part of the Quran that we have ever memorized, please don't forget it. If you do forget it, go back and memorize it. Go back and make it strong. Go back and repeat it. Never become negligent in the ayat of the Quran, because in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us of the punishment of those who do this. They'll be resurrected blind and they'll be making this dua, oh Allah, why have you made us blind when we could see before? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will tell them, كَذَلِكَ أَتَتْكَ آيَاتُنَا فَنَسِيتَهَا. This is because we gave you our ayat, we gave you our sign. فَنَسِيتَهَا, you forgot them. وَكَذَلِكَ الْيَوْمَ تُنْسَى. Today you will also be forgotten. وَكَذَلِكَ نَجْزِي مَنْ أَسْرَفَ وَلَمْ يُؤْمِنْ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِ. And this will be the recompense of those who are the most losers, the most sorriest of people, that they have forgotten the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَمْ يُؤْمِنْ بِآيَاتِ رَبِّهِ. And they really didn't believe in the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَلَعَذَابُ الْآخِرَةِ أَشَدُّ وَأَبْقَى. And the punishment of the hereafter is far more severe and more lasting. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save all of us. And we should be very, very careful with what portions of the Quran we memorize. If you have memorized, you go back, keep it strong. Review it, repeat it. Keep your connection with the Quran very, very strong. Keep your connection with the Quran very, very strong. So this is also in relation to also this particular hadith related to the marahil and the stages of the qabr, of the grave, and also in the hereafter Surah Taha that we'll be reciting tonight. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all of us a tawfiq to practice His deen. وَمَا عَلَيْنَا إِلَّا الْبَلَاغُ. سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.